This is my huge apology to Angela Palermo. She's a reporter with the Idaho Statesman. The Moscow Police Department in Idaho lied to her or either just gave her the incorrect information about the surviving roommates. At least one surviving roommate actually being on the second floor of the 1122 King Road house in Moscow, Idaho, when the horrible crimes happened. I want to talk about that, why I'm apologizing. I want to talk about this woman on Facebook riling everyone up over her Bryan Kohberger love letters. I want to talk about me scheduling a video visit with him. I don't know, fingers crossed, we'll see what happens. And all the other leaks that are coming out about this case. So I know I'm researching other cases. I'm still planning to create other videos, but this Kohberger case is not going anywhere anytime soon, especially as people keep talking about it and are supremely interested in it. In a recent video, I played a segment from a press conference, and I wondered why Angela Palermo made the assumption that two of the Idaho surviving roommates were on the first floor of the 1122 King Road house on the night of the crimes. I thought during the press conference she was just making that assumption, and that's why Angela formulated her question in this manner on November 23rd, 2022.
Angela Palermo, Idaho Statesman. I was wondering if there's any evidence that suggests the attacker visited the first floor where the two surviving roommates were.
That information will not be released at this time. It's part of our investigation, and as we stated earlier, there's many things that are involved in investigation that we will release and things we won't.
Well, it turns out Angela formulated her question that way because that is exactly what police told her. They lied to her, and Angela is coming back with the receipts. Today is Friday, January 20th. She showed the email that Rachel Doniger sent her. Rachel Doniger is listed as a Moscow police spokesman. That email is dated November 21st, 2022. You'll see the email says, "This is Rachel with the Moscow Police Communications team answering a list of 3 questions that Angela posed to her." And in reply, Rachel wrote, "Hello, Angela. Here's the first question of why this whole thing got out of whack to begin with. Were the 2 surviving roommates sleeping on the first floor during the attack?" Rachel answered, and I quote, "Yes, they were on the first floor." So that was wrong. She said, "Can you confirm whether they were unharmed?" She answered, "They were unharmed." I'm assuming she means physically. Emotionally, mentally, psychologically, I cannot imagine their damage. Did the attacker enter through the sliding glass door on the second floor? This is unknown. That was the answer. So my question is, why did the police lie to this reporter just seeking facts? A full 8 days after the horrific crimes, I'm pretty sure police knew that Dylan, one of the surviving roommates, was actually on the second floor. She actually saw Bryan Kohberger leaving. So did police intentionally start this lie, tell Angela with the Idaho Statesman this lie in order to protect Dylan? Now that's admirable, to protect a witness, but I'm thinking perhaps they could have told reporters, "We choose not to answer that question," to not cause confusion. Or was it just a mistake? Of course, mistakes happen. So I just wanted to apologize once again to Angela Palermo because she had her stuff right. She's coming out with receipts. She did not make assumptions before asking that question in the presser. She was going off of directly what the communications team in Moscow told her, and what they told her was incorrect. So sometimes reporters get blamed for stuff where they shouldn't necessarily be blamed because that's the info that's being passed along to them. Now, whether people choose to believe it or not is another thing. I know on Dateline NBC, when I did that breakdown recently, and I quote the words of Keith Morrison from Dateline NBC, "The weekend of the murders, there was another party at 1122 King Road Friday night through early Saturday. Sources have told us that as many as 150 people attended, and at least one person was communicating with me back and forth. She just outright doesn't believe it. You know, some people just, for whatever reason, they have in their own minds, even though Keith Morrison with Dateline NBC, very reputable, they were boots on the ground talking to people. There was a party, according to Dateline, that Friday night with as many as 150 people. Some people on Facebook are like, how could 150 people fit in that house? Now, we don't know if it was some folks on every single floor, which it's a huge house, and it's going to be released soon, next month. So we'll see what happens with that house. Will, other kids rent it out? That would be so scary to me. But are people milling around the parking lot? Are they in the house? Some people flat out will refuse to believe it. Maybe because they think, oh, that helps the defense, and we don't want to do anything to help the defense, so I'm just going to say that party didn't happen. People have their reasons for thinking a certain way. I believe the party happened. I believe Dateline NBC, and they say the party happened. They say they spoke with witnesses. They have a long journalistic reputation. So anyway, in the meantime, people are writing to Bryan Kohberger. At least one person I know of is requesting a video visit. There's a woman getting tons of backlash on Facebook, and I'm not going to name her or show any of her photos, but she put up a photo January 6th with like hearts all over it for Bryan Kohberger. And she's been writing these really, really long posts, which I haven't read all of them, almost professing her love for him, or I don't know what she's talking about. She talks about anxiety. She talks about her 16-year-old son. There's so much going on there. But, of course, she's getting backlash. Of course, people are wondering, why are you doing this? This is par for the course. She talks about writing Bryan Kohberger, I'm assuming, where he's at now, at the Latah County Jail. I don't know if she was talking about prior to him being extradited. But, again, I haven't read her long post. When people write really long blocks of text without breaking them into paragraphs, it's really hard to try and, take that in. My warning to her, I actually did leave her a comment. I was warning her, all of this is going to end up in discovery. Somewhere in there she included a photo of herself, and she was talking about, messing up her eye makeup, and I feel you there. I'm no expert makeup applier, as you can tell. I was warning her, be careful. I was telling her to be careful because all of this will end up in discovery, just like in the Chris Watts case. I think many of those women, and I'll go dig up some of those Chris Watts letters and photos, I don't think many of those women realized, there was one in a bikini, and there was one, some people send poems and prayers. Some of their addresses were featured. Some were kind of censored, but they forget to censor everything. There were some full names and everything. So I did tell her, be careful. I mean, this woman, she has children, obviously, at least one child. Maybe there's some emotional problems going on. She's getting this backlash. She's writing as if her letters to Bryan Kohberger are private. And she might not realize, like I didn't realize in this digital age, that we would see all of these letters written to Chris Watts for a certain period of time. And we can see his visitors history and all that stuff. So people got to know who's trying to contact these people. This is something that's been going on since the days of Ted Bundy, the Hillside Strangler, the Night Stalker. You'll see all these women writing to these quote unquote bad boys. Now, it's normal for writers and journalists to want to write to these infamous people. And not everyone has an admiration for them or a sick fascination for them. They call it hybristophilia is a real thing. It's a sexual interest in and attraction to those who commit crimes. In some cases, this may be directed towards people in prison for various types of criminal activities. No matter how horrible and heinous the crime, you will find people who want to get in touch with these men for the wrong reasons. But some just want correspondence for other reasons. Writers like me or journalists will want to write to these people just because we want to pick their brains or even eventually get more information out of them. There was a different case. It wasn't Chris Watts. It wasn't Chris Coleman. It was a different Chris. And this one writer wrote an excellent piece in Esquire, corresponded with this one Chris, another man who took out his whole family, horrible way, but just to pick their brains. And I understand why people want to do that. Maybe it's their role. Some of us want to proselytize, as they call it, or, just still recognize they allegedly have performed horrible actions like Bryan Kohberger is accused of performing, but still want to at least pass on the message of Christ to them. But author Catherine Ramsland, she famously has studied the BTK guy. She's written a lot of books about the psychology of it all. We know that author Sherilyn Cadle was able to visit and get in contact with Chris Watts, write him letters, and got his full confession from him after he first blamed his wife incorrectly for doing away with their children. Finally, Sherilyn Cadle had written to Chris Watts and got a full confession out of him, where at least he took the blame away from Shanann Watts. She got that confession before cops did. So maybe that's why I set up a video visit. I was surprised I was able to schedule to visit with Bryan Kohberger. You know, I'm not holding tons of hopes for it. It's something I've done before. Like I tried to set up one with Lori Vallow. We know the Doomsday Mom, and she would go in there and she would reject the video visit, like any smart defendant should do, according to their lawyers. But I scheduled one for today. Today is Friday, January 20th. It's still pending as of this recording. We'll see if he literally goes in there and rejects it or not. I'm surprised it's even allowing people the ability to do that, and trying to message him was not working. But that's it. Really, I just wanted to give that update about Moscow police telling the Idaho Statesman reporter Angela Palermo in a November 21st email that both surviving roommates had been on the first floor. So that didn't come out of nowhere. That came directly from police, and I know police are allowed to lie. They are allowed to lie and, give a poker face, and sometimes it might be better. They have to play their cards right in order to get the suspect. They have a suspect in custody. We'll see if they'll convene a grand jury. We'll see if this process can be sped up. So maybe we won't be looking at a preliminary hearing as late as June. Maybe things will move faster. Maybe they'll move slower. But the main gist is Angela Palermo's journalistic integrity is intact. She was only reporting what she was told. I apologize for making the assumption that she made an assumption. The other leaks we're getting, like from people, and we don't know who's leaking it. It said it's from an investigator. Now, that does not mean it's from a cop. Maybe it's a private investigator who has spoken as a source. But we know now that Bryan Kohberger visited the Mad Greek restaurant in Moscow at least twice in order to grab vegan pizza. And we know that Madison Mogen and Xana Kernodle were servers at that restaurant. So we don't know if they waited on Bryan, but we do know that it seems like kind of a small place. The food looks excellent. So they may have interacted, maybe not. We don't know if any of these Instagram accounts that purport to be Bryan's actually followed them, but allegedly he tried to message them. He tried to message the girls. So other cases I'm still keeping an eye on. State of Utah versus Jarrett Lysick. I watched that hearing this morning, so we look forward to oral arguments set for Wednesday, March 8th at 3 p.m. local Utah time. I'm really following the Anna Walsh case too, and once we heard all these questions that her husband, Bryan Walsh, allegedly searched for on Google, like, can you still identify a body with the teeth knocked out? And it's just, they're so horrible. It gets to be too much. But anyway, I wanted to get this video out there now just to set the record straight. James 1:2-3. Consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kinds, because you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance. Thanks for watching.